Hello and welcome to First Impact, a weekly podcast where we discuss the 90s anime series Neon Genesis Evangelion. My name is Old Jen, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jordan. On the way here this morning to the studio, I was thinking, I can't remember which episode it was. We first see that big group of Ray clones in that water tank down in the depths of Nerve, and I'm thinking, look, it's a big risk by old Gendo to have all those clones there. I mean, yeah, look, they had no human soul, granted. They seem pretty docile, but what if they had escaped, right? And then it gets out that, human cloning technology is a thing, and it's a pretty big risk, a pretty big bombshell. I'm pretty sure that Gendo would make it Nerve's top priority to, go and round up all those Ray clones. Look, it might take a while, it might take a lot of resources, but, I'm pretty sure that eventually we'd see Futsuki come into the drawing room. Gendo's there behind the desk. He's like, "Sir, I've just received word. I can confirm we've collected all the rays from Europe. So I've just received word. We've got collected all the rays from the whole American continent." Oh, that's great. So so all I have to do now is catch some rays down in Africa. Toto.
Well, on that horrifically meandering intro, this is First Impact, and a little bit of a interesting / different ending episode. We've talked about the series, the entire sort of original airing sort of run, the 26 episodes. Yep. We've discussed End of Evangelion.
What is there left to do?
Yeah.
Why are we here? Why'd you pull me out of bed this morning?
You may have noticed we pretty much throughout the whole series tried to avoid talking about the sort of meta-contextual element of the show, by which we mean the creative staff led by Hideaki Anno and produced by Gainax, and sort of the production schedule and all the sort of things that went into play to create the show. We tried to focus mainly on the text at hand.
Yeah. Yep.
And now, just sort of at the end of this run of the original sort of like Evangelion 90s sort of material, we thought we'd wrap it all up by sort of talking about Anno, the staff at Gainax, maybe where they went after, and just sort of like how the show sort of impacted anime in general. Okay. I know a lot of what we're probably going to be talking about comes from Elgin had to do a little bit of homework.
Yeah, I know.
I gave him some YouTube links from some prominent anime sort of
I feel so otaku right
essayists.
now. It's amazing.
Yeah, so, we will make reference, and I think I will put in this description of the video and probably on our Facebook a link to the videos that we sort of discussed.
You can do that.
But there's like that great video by Crunchyroll about the 37 timelines. I know you missed out on that one.
Yeah, I have to watch that still. Oh, man.
But yeah, there's like Who is Hideaki Anno by Digibro.
Yep.
The sort of cultural impact.
So much background stuff. Yeah, I didn't
In
really have any
Defense of
idea.
the Elevator Scene by Super Eye Patchwolf. And The End of Evangelion by Folding Ideas.
Yep.
And Does It Matter What the Creator of Neon Genesis Says? By PBS Idea Channel. Rip, the host of that, he was pretty good.
But he's alive, right?
Yeah, he's alive.
Good.
His run on that ended.
Okay.
Just as I got into it.
Wow.
Anyway, so there's a lot to cover, but no conversation about Neon Genesis could be complete without first discussing our Jen, who is the best girl of Neon Genesis, and why is it Ramiel?
Which one was Ramiel? That was an early one.
The diamond, the tetrahedron, or the dodecahedron
with the drill.
Yeah,
the drill attack.
No, the octahedron.
Oh, excuse.
No, tetrahedron.
I don't know. Not a geometer.
Oh, Jen, you got to tell me what angel had the most impact on you?
Nice use of impact.
I said it, and impact font.
Yeah, right.
Up as I said it, including Lilum.
I didn't mind the one in space dropping bombs.
Sahaquiel.
Yeah. I didn't mind that one. I liked the Dirac Sea one.
Laeliel.
Yes, I like Laeliel. Kaoru, I don't know.
Who's your man?
He made me think.
Yeah.
Kaoru did.
Well,
who else was there?
He died. He died for us.
Yeah, he did. He died for humanity.
He had an opportunity to make contact with Adam and destroy us all, and then he realized it was actually Lilith, and that we were descended from Lilith, and that destroying Lilith would most likely result in the death of humanity and
the death of Shinji.
Yeah, and because of his love for Shinji, he chose us.
Yeah.
Even though Masato calls him a buster for doing that.
Buster. Listen here, Buster. Yeah, maybe it's a Hakiel. What is it? I think I've forgotten a lot
The
of
Angel of Ingenuity.
That's right. Yeah, it was interesting. Oh, man. Who's your favorite? It's Ramiel, right?
Well, I mean, look.
Why love for Ramiel?
I think Ramiel is best girl.
Talk about Ramiel.
My favorite angel...
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tough one. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big fan of Sakiel. That first appearance is iconic. But yeah, I mean, like, in terms of Angel that I just sort of, like, love the episode and sort of everything around it.
Right.
That Zerial.
Which one was that?
He, with the big tape arms. That cuts off Asuka's head.
Yeah.
Fettuccine arms. One ends up eating it. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Fettuccine arms. I mean, very fitting.
Mm-hmm.
His body is 90% pasta.
You know which one I didn't really care for? The conjunctivitis one, the big spidery thing. That dropped the goop down in the hole. Yeah, I just thought it was underwhelming.
Yeah, it was pretty bland. Just sort of wandered into the city.
Yeah.
And got shot.
I have a feeling...
out of a hole.
Yeah, it didn't have much, like, impetus or initiative, that angel. I think that angel was just literally just wandering through the city.
Yeah, just stumbled across
them. Yeah. Hey, what are you guys doing? And then bang.
Well, look, I think it's a testament to the sort of like diversity of the angels and sort of over this course of the series how they managed to take the concept of this sort of like your mecha giant monster sort of like antagonistic force and really imbue them with this sense of like eldritch sort of like unearthliness that sort of
the big other.
Yeah, that really sort of defies they're not just an extraterrestrial threat.
No.
There's a real question of like, well, where are they from? What's their purpose? And they do all this with like, no angel really speaks beyond Kaoru, who you maybe assume that like the way they're created or the way they appear, there might be some sense of like iteration in them. It's not very clear whether they're being like, whether they existed already and are just arriving or whether they're being created as a response to the contact that they've had with humanity.
Well, we sort of touched on that because they first started. There was a point where they were like physical attacks, very punchy,
just trying to get into.
And then
it
started, and then it started getting more. Sort of more punchy. I mean, the first one was just like a big fighter.
Arguably, Iriel, the one that's a computer virus, is the first that swaps tact and goes for more of a sort of invasive sort of
but
approach.
Still on the surface, still just trying to get to the headquarters of like the enemy, quote unquote.
It's trying to hack the Magi to self-destruct.
Yes, right. So it's going about it in a different way, but it ultimately is just
a path of destruction.
Yeah. But then it turns into the cerebral attacks, the psychological probes.
So the next one is straight after Iriel is Leliel, which is the psychoanalytic sort of like attack on Shinji.
Yeah.
Or maybe not an attack, more a probe, where we get that first sort of glimpse at contact with an angel.
So yes, interesting. Yeah, maybe they were iterative like that. And now bringing it back to our meta sort of discussion
with the
today,
exception of Zerial, who is more of a brute force angel afterwards, all of the angels post Iriel have some form of either contact with humanity,
right,
or like a more unorthodox method of like fusing with or penetrating or understanding
until Kaoru, who basically is a human,
and his method of like he endears himself to Shinji. He does all of those things. He breaks down Shinji's AT field in a very peaceful way.
Right.
He sort of
all you need is love.
Yeah. Has he over the course of the other angels' sort of attacks, has he realized that the way in is through a softening of the armor?
Yeah, right.
You know,
kill him with kindness.
Exactly.
Let's now bring this whole question of are the angels learning and responding and then changing their tack to our meta discussion, where do you think the creators, the writers, Hideaki Anno and etc. et al., were they also creating these angels on the fly? Did they have this sort of shift in mind? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. So this opens me up to a lot of like strong opinions about the nature of creation.
Yep.
Like
it's an iterative process as well.
Yeah, with artwork. In that, I think there is this desire in us to perceive the artist as like this genius,
master.
Who has this
the Gendo
plan that's all being. Yeah, I mean, like you know, that's it.
Yeah,
the Gendo crescendo that this guy has everything is going according to plan. I've written it all down. It's all as foreseen by the Dead Sea Scrolls.
And we did at times sort of half joke about it that the writers were into all this like Da Vinci bullshit.
Like
so,
how much of this. And I think the fact that the title sequence has so many clues and imagery that is evocative of the end of the series, and it was there from the start, shows that they did, in a very broad way, know where they were headed.
So they definitely did make that title sequence, like, in original airing, so that was there on that first episode.
Yeah, the show was being worked on as they were releasing it. So the title sequence was set in stone from the start, even though they were sort of like, due to the creative process and which we'll talk about in a second, things that got in the way of production, shows that they did have an idea, and even though they sort of had to work their way through that, that there was a broad understanding of what the show was about from the start. It had nuance and sort of like intrigue thrust upon it and fleshed out as they went.
It's interesting. There's so much intrigue in this show. We spent half the series wondering what Sayle's doing, what the angels are, blah blah blah, and then but half in the background we're thinking, what are the writers doing? Where what are the writers' aims?
Right.
And I guess that's what we're sort of getting into today. That's the part that I really found interesting, doing all the homework you prescribed me.
Yeah, so a lot of that would have been completely new to you.
Yeah.
Being quite divorced from...
reality.
Reality and the sort of like anime discussion and sort of some of the big influential series that have come out and how Evangelion maybe played into their creation or at the very least the green lighting of those shows.
Yeah.
You pretty fair removed from that. So seeing you get that sort of crash course on like, I guess it's influence, but also a little bit of the turbulent production schedule that was going on behind the scenes.
Right.
Just to really touch upon it briefly, like one of the sort of overarching things about Evangelion has been this idea that Anno's genius vision was compromised at some point due to either budgetary constraints or like the realities of like the real world affecting what they felt was appropriate to put in a show versus what they could put in a show at a certain time slot.
Well, there was that, we'll just say, there was that sarin gas attack in Japan.
On the subway train.
Yes, carried out by, this doomsday cult, trying to bring about the end of the world and think about what, Sayle are trying to do, right? Yeah. And this, in the sarin gas, this doomsday cult, like using Christian symbology or references or something, which we see on Neon Genesis, right?
You fell into my trap card, old Jen.
What's that one?
Well, I inceptioned you about 5 episodes ago by using the false word symbology.
Oh, yeah.
And it's come back to haunt us.
Well, did I just say symbology?
You said symbology. Gotcha.
I meant symbolism. Symbology is a word, but not the right word.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's very apt.
Sayle are basically doing exactly that, right? Trying to bring about the world.
You could even push it a
Dead
little
Sea
bit further.
Scrolls,
The way sort of everyone is affected during Third Impact. Like, we'll never know what Third Impact was sort of originally supposed to look like, or human instrumentality, but we get a pretty good idea from End of Evangelion, and the fact that the previews at the last few episodes sort of use storyboards from what ends up becoming sequences from End of Evangelion shows that they at some point were planning on something a little bit more reality-based for those last 2 episodes, as opposed to the sort of abstracted construction of Shinji's mind. So one way you could possibly view it is that they also were worried about not just the similarities between Sayle's motives and the Doomsday Cult's motive, especially with the Christian symbolism, but also the fact that everyone sort of explodes into orange goo, the LCL, might have had just a little bit too close for comfort with the fact that with a gas attack, people just drop dead.
True.
Or like excruciating, drop dead. And that's sort of like a little bit too close to home sort of thing. And then with a little bit of distance, they felt a little bit more comfortable in ending the show with a film.
But out of those, obviously, terrible circumstances. But it led to one of my sort of favorite parts of the end of the series, where we see that whole deconstruction of, we see that sequence where it's basically just stick drawing.
Yep.
Where Shinji's sort of floating around, and they're talking about, being anchored to reality or being not, and if you're not, you're just floating around nothing.
Yep.
Like, that would have, I guess, been primarily budgetary.
Yeah,
like
having to scrap a significant portion of the...
But it worked, right?
The more sort of physical elements of the show resulted in these very conceptual, abstract-driven pieces.
Yeah, but it worked.
That, I mean, it's no secret we're staunch advocates for the show's ending as it aired.
Yeah.
And for us, End of Evangelion is this fantastically trippy sort of like expansion on what goes on in Shinji's mind. I know that's definitely how I feel about it.
Yep. It's like the opposite. It's like the last episode of the show and End of Evangelion, the film, are sort of like the opposite branches of how human instrumentality can be, what it can be.
Yeah, well, one is this very sort of metaphysical, abstracted version of instrumentality, and then the other one's like, oh, and just in case you're wondering what was going on outside of Shinji's head, you sort of get this, like, everyone was exploding into LCL, and like letting their AT fields down and being harvested together into this collective being, and then Shinji was like, well, fuck that, and then like tries to kill Asuka at the end and then gives up because of, I guess, the futility of it all. It's interesting that the show ends on such like a self-actualization, a self-acceptance of that Shinji is like aware of what he needs from himself.
Right.
That the answers come from within.
Yes.
That he has spent the entirety of the series asking, pleading, and running away from others and their impact on him, only to get to the climax of the series, his version of human instrumentality, where he realizes that he's the master of his own universe.
Yeah, right.
He is the only person who can sort of form any sense of like comfort in his own mind, in his own self, and he sort of transcends his depression and his isolation at the end of it, and is met with like all the people in his life.
The whole world sort of is stripped away. And
and then the flip side of that is End of Evangelion, which is like, I know a lot of, and I used to feel this way.
Okay.
That End of Evangelion was like, episode 25 and 26 is what's going on in Shinji's mind during Third Impact, and End of Evangelion is like what's happening outside and what happens after. But now I sort of, when you really put how positive that ending of the series is into context with End of Evangelion, it's hard not to feel that Anno was affected by people's response to the show in such a way that he was almost pushed in a place where he doubled back on that self-acceptance and chose to re-end the series on a negative note. Or not just a negative note, but one that's a little bit more morally grey.
Because you mentioned there the response to the end of the series, because there was a lot of people reacting negatively to it, right? Like he received death threats. And,
they wanted Asuka kicking ass.
Yeah, they wanted that.
Wanted Shinji, going apeshit in Unit 1.
They wanted Shinji to get all the chicks. They wanted Pen to ride back into town on a blaze of glory.
Piloting jet alone.
Yeah, right. So, and then apparently I read or watched that Hideaki Anno, the creator, went back into like a real depressive state in the years immediately after.
Well, it wasn't just fan disappointment. It was hate mail and death threats.
So you reckon then the end of Evangelion being so different to the end of the show, you reckon that was like a screw you to like, hey, you wanted big mecha fighting bullshit?
I don't
Here
think
it is.
Was. I think the idea of Anna the troll is
that was the thing I kept hearing.
Is an oversimplification of an artist who from this sort of these video links, these homework we gave ourselves, I really got this sense that Anno is this like creative guy who is willing to throw caution to the wind and try something and really sort of reinvent himself over and over again. Like he's never confined to one medium necessarily. Like he started in sort of cheap cheap effects driven sort of like short films where he's doing fan films where he's Ultraman fighting a kaiju.
Right.
And then he goes on and he becomes an animator and he works with Miyazaki sort of in the early days, and then he becomes like a founding member of Gainax and works on a bunch of shows and all that sort of stuff. And then post Evangelion and some early success, he then goes on to do a sort of like really sort of small scale indie
I saw that
film,
live action
where every camera angle is like wildly different to the one before it. It just like it paints this picture of someone who is desperate to convey their sense of self and find a source of connection with the outside world through the art that they make, but also incredibly brave at the same time, despite this sort of shyness, because of his willingness to like try shit. You know, and I think this idea that Neon Genesis is a masterpiece road mapped out by a genius who was fucked with by production schedules and low budget is such a shallow misreading of the reality, which is that all creative processes are a process. Everything is iteration.
It's like a feedback process on itself.
Like as you're making things, things come up. And that being diverted... It's
like the angels.
Exactly. Like being diverted from your original intent and finding new meaning in what you're creating. Neon Genesis is the product of someone who has shown through their entire sort of body of work that they're willing to adapt. They're willing to find an unorthodox way.
The angel of ingenuity.
That, and you know, like, and it's all wrapped up in a guy who also fundamentally is trying to convey his sense of self with the outside world through his art. So of course that sort of guy is not going to necessarily want to explain himself.
No.
He wants you to look at it and find meaning in it.
Well, to explain your art is to explain yourself, and no one can really explain themselves.
Who is going to do that without feeling bashful?
Well, that's true as well. You're
either a narcissist who has zero problem explaining their art and how it affects them or how it is them. And then we would accuse him of being egotistical, or you go overly self-deprecating and then people walk away from it with this sense that, oh, it means nothing. And it's like, well, it's a little in between. You know, like the death of the author doesn't mean that you disregard the author.
No.
The death of the author means that you're like, the text is the only thing that matters and everything is text. You know, like Anno is text. Gainax is text. The sarin gas is text. You know, like all of this feeds into the creation of Evangelion. It's all equally valid. And in a world that ultimately has no meaning, like, we put meaning on things. So like the show has meaning by our interpretation. And what Anno says affects that interpretation.
And that's liberating, and it's sort of what human instrumentality was sort of all about. We remember all throughout the series there was this idea that there's Shinji, but then there's also the Shinji that exists in Asuka's mind, the Shinji that exists in blah blah blah's mind. So accepting that and accepting that all those Shinjis are equal, right? You can liberate yourself from your problems and realize that, hey, I'm in control of my own destiny. Because look, at the end of the day, those Shinjis are going to exist in their mind.
Jen,
I can't
we're
do
on
much
like
about
a 400% sync ratio right now. We're about to go berserk and eat Adam.
So I can't do much about those other Shinjis. So I'm just going to be this Shinji, and my Shinji and that Shinji, they can coexist, and you know, whatever.
That the Shinji in other people's minds is as equally valid as your sense of self, but ultimately in their validity, you're not entitled to that other Shinji. You don't need to really worry about that. In terms of your self-acceptance, the self-acceptance comes from the fact that you exist in everyone's mind in equally valid ways. But in the same way that they're valid, they have no real bearing on your sense of self.
It sort of sounds like reversey sort of in that way. But you're right. If you're a creator, by recognizing that no matter how much, you know, like Da Vinci sort of level planning bullshit you put into it, your piece of art is going to be interpreted in different ways anyway. So by accepting that,
you will be put under the lens lens.
Yeah,
the work will be put under the lens,
right.
and there will be other people who distance you to the point of basically not wanting to utter your name in reference to your art, and it's all something that you've sort of just got to accept is part of it.
Yeah, and we're just floating in some big sea of LCL of ideas and flippy floppy meanings, and it's just all, and that's what I mean. All of a sudden now the phrase Evangelion doesn't mean anything, and Evangelion does mean everything. It is what it is, and that's what I mean. Like we say that the ending of the show and the end of Evangelion film are sort of like on the surface opposites, but was one a reaction to the other? Is one a correction of the other? No, I just think they both exist.
Yep.
You know, they're both.
There's so much overlap.
Yes.
Despite the differences in tone.
Yeah, right.
That it's like, how can they not be as equally valid?
You know what would have been awesome? Like, look, one had to be released after the other just because that's how time works. Yeah. But it would have been amazing.
What are you talking about?
Linear
time. Is a flat circle.
But wouldn't it be amazing if somehow the ending of, like...
Evangelion was released before the first episode.
No. Yeah, that would have been amazing. No, but like, instead of having the last 2 episodes of the show and having the end of Evangelion film, they were both released like simultaneously.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You pick your poison.
Yeah. And so that's how I sort of see them. They're like the same.
Well, yeah. I mean, you were in the fortunate position.
Well, yes, I didn't have to wait the years.
Same as me.
Right.
Is that when I first watched the show, there was never like, and I think this is a little bit of a historical revisionist sort of like way to view it, is that there are so many people who have come to Evangelion post end of Evangelion's release that the idea of truly like, where did this show go? Right. What is this show doing? And just being so unused to this idea of like a show that is not the ending you expected.
Right.
Even now you get conversations about end of Evangelion, Evangelion in general, which is essentially like, oh, the show's amazing until the last 2 episodes. But don't worry, just watch End of Evangelion. It's way better. And it's like, that's such a bizarre sort of thing to say to someone, because one, it sets up the expectation that you're supposed to hate the last 2 episodes, and 2, just shows how many people watch Evangelion and I think walk away from it with just an incredibly different perspective of the show to me. Like, I remember being younger and not feeling completely satisfied by the fact that like Unit 2 doesn't kick ass in the last episode, and that you don't get to see that storyboarded shot of her swinging the double-sided blade around.
That's right.
But there was always a part of me that like, even in my like, I am Shinji's age, I want to see robots and angels fight, even then I knew there was something special there.
Okay.
Even if I couldn't put into words
at that age.
or process at that age. And then watching it now, I can't imagine the show ending any other way, especially when I have the privilege of knowing that End of Evangelion is there to flesh out and add context to a lot of what might be a little bit too abstracted.
It would have been interesting for you to be watching this again now and seeing the last couple of episodes, knowing that End of Evangelion is sort of around the corner. Yeah, you're watching it in a sort of timey-wimey sort of bullshit as well. You've got the specter of End of Evangelion, the negative side of it, I guess, while then watching the positive side.
Yeah.
Whereas I, watching the show for the first time, sees the last, optimistic sort of, AT fields
Shinji
breaking
smiling.
down, Shinji smiling, and then I get heartbroken when I watch End of Evangelion, but that's okay. Hearts were made to break.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's cyclical. It's
Yes, you can watch them again and over and flip around with each other, and yin-yang
I mean, like,
bullshit.
once we get to this rebuild of Evangelion stuff, which, if there was any question about it, yes, we will do the rebuilds.
Okay.
We are going to wait until 3.0 plus 1.0 is closer to release.
I have no idea what any of this stuff means, but go on. Okay.
But we will do those, and that's sort of become something that Anno talked about in the years leading up to the rebuilds, and when he sort of explained to people why he feels like it's worth redoing Neon Genesis, was this idea that he felt the story was cyclical, and I think when you look back at End of Evangelion with that perspective, there is this sort of idea that like we've been given a glimpse at a different attempt at third impact and how Shinji came out of that attempt differently than what he did in the show.
Okay.
And I mean, like, that's all, like it's open enough for that to not necessarily be like one straight interpretation. But it's there that, you have these two, I mean, like, End of Evangelion is only super depressing right at the very end when he chooses to strangle Asuka. Like, and we get the sense that he's learned nothing. Whereas, like, the ending of the show is like super positive. Like, we're trapped in Shinji's mind for 2 whole episodes until he finally has that realization that, like,
he is the
he is the cause of all his sorrow. And he is also the solution to it.
Isn't that an interesting sentence? You are the cause of all your problems. Like, at first it's like a hit to the gut, like, oh Jesus, I'm the cause of all this shit. But then you think, wait, I'm the cause. Just me. I can fix me.
Nothing is out of your hands. I'm just on a very basic level. Obviously there are, some very real mental health issues that can get in the way of that, but like for someone who is just in a bad place or in a rut,
you have more more control
than you think.
Yes, correct. Look, I mean, we all sometimes need help. Sometimes we're not saying that. So
I would hate
only
to,
up
like,
to you. No.
Come away with like a very anti mental health sort of message there when it's like, no, if you need the professional help, get the professional help. But like, I mean, there is a reason why professional help is there to help you.
Yes.
That's what we don't have treatments where someone can open up your psyche yet.
I assume
we can't all get swallowed by an angel.
I've never received
and be saved by our mother in the core.
I've never received professional mental help, although some viewers, and I'm guessing you, would say that I would require it after that Toto Africa diatribe earlier on in the episode. However, from my understanding, a lot of it nowadays at least is empowering yourself to get yourself out of whatever. I cut some rays down in Africa.
Isn't it Bless the Rains?
Oh, fuck. Is it? I'm sure it's Catch Some Rays.
God
it still works.
Damn, old Jen.
It still works.
It took me this long to be like,
okay.
I was confused when you said it, and I've just realised why.
It still works.
The lyrics,
okay, if it's
fuck them.
All right, they're not the lyrics, but they rhyme with the lyrics, so it's the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So I don't think any conversation about sort of the meta-ness of Neon Genesis would be complete without sort of addressing the cultural impact that this show had.
Right.
I mean, like, you watched videos that I sent you, which were basic. There is a post-Neon Genesis anime industry, and that its impact on anime as a whole is like, that there is nothing that sort of had that impact, save maybe the very first animated Japanese series. Like, this is...
Whoa, is third impact the impact of Neon Genesis Evangelion on the anime industry?
Well, it certainly changed Japan's anime industry.
Right.
For the better, arguably. Okay. It added a lot of nuance to TV shows. Right. There are much better videos that talk about all of this stuff. But I think where we're getting at is that, a lot of these sort of like shows that have come out since certainly probably only exist because someone showed that you can do a show that goes absolutely off the wall or just takes a strange left-hand turn and finds success in doing that. And that emboldens. Empowers a lot of producers to look at pictures that they would have otherwise turned their nose up at and thought that there was no market for. Those shows were given the confidence to go ahead and find those audiences. And I'm sure we'll come across a lot of those shows in the future of our podcast. But, for now, like, just that's a sort of very broad cultural impact that Neon Genesis had. But on a very sort of like...
Okay, this is what you've been sort of teasing to me.
Neon Genesis specific impact that the show had is the insane profitability of Neon Genesis merchandise is unparalleled.
Drop me with some weird shit.
So, like in the wake of Neon Genesis, they obviously scrambling. This is a show that was created as an original television anime series. It's not based on a manga. It's not based on any prior property.
And even that, it was one of the few to sort of do that.
So arguably the first is the idea. And if not the first, the first to show that it was very successful to go this route and could be immensely profitable. Which
isn't that such a weird concept to think that at one point anime was seen as just adaptations of manga? It was like if now television, TV, like in the
West, we are seeing that.
Yeah.
Now in Hollywood, there's this perception that a movie will only have a chance at success if it's based off a prior property.
Oh, that's true.
And now what we're seeing is a real sort of proliferation of young adult novel adaptations, which have either had the insane success of The Hunger Games or the sort of mild appreciation of things like, you know, The Maze Runner and Divergent and those ones that were like, yeah, they made some money, and they got all of the films in the series made, but they were not Hunger Games sort of level. You know, your Harry Potters, your Twilights, 50 Shades of Grey. Like there is like this real thirst from studios to produce works based off novels.
Well, is it just studios,
and even comic books as well?
Yeah, or is it just studios thinking that, hey, instead of going on some like risky sort of original venture, hey, this book is popular, therefore a movie based off it must be popular too? Is it just something as simply cynical as that?
There is this idea, I think, that recognizable works are more likely to be a success than something that is completely new. And it's just one of those things like you're trying to apply numbers and science to a thing that is inherently like you just got to sort of luck out sometimes with the zeitgeist.
Right.
You know, like would Avatar have been the huge success
that's true.
it was?
Avatar was so massive.
You know,
original.
like it was an original piece.
It had the original technology as well behind it. Though.
But would it have the success in 2019?
Oh, I see.
That it had in 2010,
given that it's a new thing.
Was 2010 the perfect year for Avatar?
Right.
You know, like were we primed to be like excited about 3D movies? Were we primed to be excited about entirely CG worlds that are so photoreal yet like extravagant and exotic that like our minds and eyeballs melt?
Right.
Because like that movie in recent years has found a lot of detractors in the sense that like even when it came out, people were like, it's just Pocahontas or it's just Dances with Wolves. It's Fern Gully with blue cat people. Like you can't really say without, you know, just doing it and seeing if it works.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think that's so much of the trouble with this Hollywood's desire to produce recognizable works as films. You're trying to apply a rigid formula to something that is intangible.
Yeah, you can't separate a piece of art from the time that it was released, I guess. Like where it's so inextricably linked.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Particularly when you're talking about success. You know, like things. You know, you just look at how vastly different filmmaking is now. Like people were terrified of those original the miniseries with Tim Curry.
Oh yeah.
And then you watch any clip from it now, and you're just like, how the fuck could anyone have been scared by this?
Exactly.
But like at the time, the idea of a clown, you know, coming out of a drain, you know, like was so like unusual and a frightening concept that this clown could be preying on people, that like now when they reapproach it with these most recent adaptations, they've had to really like lean into our modernized version of how we view the 80s. And like it's, you know, like it's modern cinematography. It's not relying on any sort of like old school tricks. And you know, they've had to really build out and find a genuinely terrifying look for the clown. And even then there are some people who, you know, see clips of that and laugh.
Oh really?
You know, like it's just culturally we're in such a different place that, you know, that's a work that people know, and arguably the reason why it was produced is because people know Stephen King's name and people know it.
You know what my clown coming out of a drain moment was? Seeing a penguin come out of a sauna with a bathrobe on. I'm talking about the first reel of Pen Pen. That's when I looked at you over on the couch and thinking, what the fuck are we watching, dude?
And who would have thought 3 episodes later you'd be madly in love with him?
Yeah, right.
But going off that sort of, I know we had a little bit of a
but we're talking
tangent.
We're talking about how we were talking about release of art and the time in which it is, and what an impact Neon Genesis had.
Yeah, and
when it came out,
almost inversely to everything we're saying, Neon Genesis, this original piece, has almost become an evergreen property.
Okay.
Whereas you know, like basically you can release something that is the most tangentially sort of connected to Neon Genesis,
and people will
people will buy it, and people will flock to it, and it will find a market, such that you get
Here we go.
In the void of like Evangelion content. The shows wrapped
shows
up,
and movies
the movies ended, rebuilds are like 10 years away. Some people don't even know that the rebuilds are happening yet. I remember finding out in 2008 or maybe 2006 that the rebuilds were being made, and they basically waited like I think 2 or 3 years before the first one came out. Like significant portion of time where there was no new Evangelion.
But you're saying out of desperation, much like how out of budgetary desperation, beautiful line drawing representations of Shinji's psyche were made. You're saying out of this void, out of this absence of official licensed Evangelion media, some weirdo bullshit has surfaced. Tell me about them.
If Neon Genesis was all about sort of deconstructing like this waifuism and all this sort of business, and sort of like showing people to be the flawed humans that they are, and that, you know, sort of like very introspective look. Of course, in the wake of something that has a very poignant message behind it.
You're not talking about a hospital bed simulator video game, are you?
Yeah, you of course need things like the Shinji Ikari Raising Project, which essentially walks back all of the progressiveness of the entire series. And I remember sending you a panel of it, in which Rei and Asuka realize the only way to turn Shinji straight again is if the two of them team up to win him back from Kaoru. You know, because like,
how do they do that? Do they go down the class coordinate supervisor tact by making him a delicious lunch?
In terms of weird content that has popped up in the wake of Neon Genesis's huge cultural impact. There's also an infamous the Neon Genesis hentai.
There is,
which is just this 14-minute clip.
Oh Jesus!
Which I think is Gendo's plan for human instrumentality. I mean, you know, I don't.
What, him and Yui's ghost getting it on, or?
Oh, Jen, I'll just put it this way. Go to Pornhub and Google Neon Genesis Evangelion and look for the 14-minute animated clip, and you will find out Gendo's true plan for human instrumentality, I think. But yeah, like there's just like so much Neon Genesis that it is almost impossible to sort of catalog. Thank God Crunchyroll made that 37 timelines of Neon Genesis video, because it is insane how over the years, how many like sort of spin-off series, you know, like partially licensed, certainly unsanctioned by any of the creative team.
Unsanctioned by God himself. Sorry, I'm just, oh my God, I think I found it. And save.
I mean, it's everything. It's food products with Neon Genesis on it. I mean, like, this is not unusual stuff for Japan, which, you know, like, has to find a way to market all anime series to actually be profitable. But, you know, like, I don't think there is anything as marketed as Neon Genesis. Like, that like, pachinko machines, which sort of continue on the idea of, like, Neon Genesis through, like, Gainax, or, well, rather, Studio Kara animated, like, bonus scenes and fan servicey moments of these characters incorporated into like officially licensed pachinko machines. Like it's like you needn't look very far to find just how even to this day the enduring legacy of it, and it's like just insane profitability from like these beloved characters.
Let's play a game. I'm gonna Google Neon Genesis Evangelion and then put a random item next to it and see what comes up. I started with teapot. Yep, there's one. Cup of Shinji mug from Redbubble, $14.96 Australian dollars. It's not bad.
Well, yes, that's a famous meme.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Neon Genesis leg warmers. Oh, have I stumped the internet? There are no Neon Genesis Evangelion leg warmers. Wait, they're cosplay boots. I think we've found our niche.
See, yeah.
I think we've found our
that's our
gap.
way in.
Yeah, you're right. Oh my God.
that'll just about do us for our conversation about Neon Genesis for the moment. We'll be doing something different for October. We're going to be watching a bunch of body horror-inspired films for October, and that will lead us into our next anime series, which we'll reveal after those 4 episodes. For now, you can find me on Twitter at It's Got Stealth, and old Jen, he is...
Well, follow me on Twitter at bestpodcastintroever.com.
Thanks for listening.